So your favorite color's black.
Pink.
Pink. But you like black.
I love black. I think black and pink go really well together.
Well, they do.
They do.
I don't know why. It makes me think of Molly Ringwald.
Pretty in pink. That's sort of our
Maybe.
generation.
I'm curious, why black?
Oh, there's so much depth to black.
That's deep. That's deep. I'm talking with Amy, my dear, dear friend, Amy. I've been sober, I don't know, over 10 and a half years, and I met Amy like very early on. She's, we see each other randomly, but she's always been a big part of my sobriety. And her husband, Sean, who's been on the podcast twice now, but they're just awesome people and have been like a big cornerstone of my sobriety. And Amy is finally here to talk to us.
And I'm honored. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. I'm sorry it took so long.
No.
I've just been up to some things. Did you grow up in Chicago?
I grew up on the North Shore in Wilmette.
In Wilmette. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now tell me about your dad. Your dad was kind of somebody, right?
Yeah, he was a well-known, well-respected journalist.
How was that growing up with
It was so awesome.
Was it?
Yeah, and he wasn't it's funny because I feel like it was sort of the golden age of journalism, and it was past that, but it felt like it. There were some really well-known personalities here in Chicago working for Chicago papers.
Who were they? Could you name a couple of them?
Mike Royko.
Did Sean Hayes, didn't he come through and do like a play about him? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
He may have.
All right.
And he was pretty famous.
Yeah.
Irv Kupcinet was another one. Just really interesting personalities. And you're going to love this when I tell you this. My dad belonged to a group called the Maggots, which was an acronym for the Michigan Avenue Gin Guzzlers or Total Sots. And it took me forever to memorize that.
Fucking writers, man. Jesus.
But the funniest thing about my dad was he was very gentle and soft-spoken and quiet and didn't swear. And he would have a martini only, every now and again. He was the farthest thing from one of the maggots, but he was right in there. He was
those were his people.
Hardcore journalist. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. And your brother kind of followed in his footsteps a little, right?
He did. Yeah. My brother is also a journalist or an editor. He's done both. He writes, he does feature articles and such.
That's very cool. So, all right. What the fuck happened, Amy?
Well, dude, I was adopted.
Oh, I did not. Oh, now we're getting some. Okay.
It's so funny because during COVID, one of my relatives found me on 23andMe.
Oh, shit.
And like a half sibling. And I knew there were half siblings. There were 5 of them. There are only 3 now. Oh. And I met them, and I met my birth mother, and oh my God. Yeah, I came from a long line of alcoholics.
Okay.
But the family that adopted me, like my parents, they never, how do I put it? I usually say drinking was never modeled for me, and yet I took naturally to it.
That is very well said, because a lot of us take naturally to it. Some people kind of earn their way there over time, and other people, like I'm assuming you and I, we didn't stand a chance.
No. And I'm so grateful I didn't grow up in the family of origin, because I think I would have been dead by now.
Yeah.
Because 2 of them are.
Where are they from?
The South Side, Tinley Park.
Oh, wow.
Or no, Evergreen Park.
Oh, wow. So okay, you stayed close to home then.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom was 16 when she gave birth to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
She turned 17 like the week she gave birth. And then, yeah.
Wow. Did you guys talk?
No.
Yeah.
I think, it's funny. I think like for about a year, My sister, one of my half sisters, she tried to really incorporate me into the
Yeah.
extended family and family. Very kind and wonderful, but my mother wasn't. I mean, I think she'd really put all that behind her, and it was
Yeah.
like opening up old
Yeah, I
wounds.
get it.
Yeah,
She was probably pleased that you know, had the upbringing that you did, and
definitely.
like feels like she did the right thing.
Yes.
Okay. So, all right. When did the drinking start? I mean, was it young, or were you late to the game? Because I was late to the game.
You know, it's a weird story, Chad. I don't know how much time you have. But,
Dude, we get weird.
okay.
That's the point of the show.
Okay. I just will tell you, I clearly remember my first drunk, which was
Okay.
at a Thanksgiving dinner
Okay.
with some cousins and my my uncle. He
Okay.
like all the kids got to have these little tiny like sherry glasses with wine in them,
Okay.
and I drank mine very quickly. And I was about 10, 8 to 10. And he refilled it for me. He was across the table, and I drank it again. And he refilled it for me about 3 times, and then he realized, oh, this is not okay. This is
Yeah.
not normal, because he realized I was going to continue to down that glass of wine if he repoured. So he didn't. And so my little, I think I would like to say I was 8. Yeah, got up, went to the refrigerator, took a can of beer, went upstairs in my room, drank it, and then smashed the can and hid it under my mattress, and went down and got another one and did the same thing. And then the world was spinning. I got in bed, I called for my mother, and I was so sick, and there were no more wine for children on holidays anymore after that. But I mean, I had never seen behavior like that, but that's what I just did.
I mean, that is amazing. It's fucking scary as a
It's
parent,
really
but it
scary.
is amazing. Like, just the fact that you knew at that age to hide the evidence.
Yeah.
I mean, from Jump Street, like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, because alcohol really, I believe that what's written in our literature, I believe, it is that allergy of the body and the compulsion of the mind.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I crave it. I want it.
Do you still get cravings?
No, in the end there, I've really loved weed.
Uh,
So sometimes, I mean, the smell of weed is everywhere.
I
We
know.
went to a concert, a Metallica concert last summer.
Yeah, I was there the same night.
Yeah.
I know. And
Oh my God.
my son was like, Jesus,
It was everywhere.
everywhere.
Oh, it was almost too much. And I smell it all the time because my neighbor grows some next.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
But that was overwhelming. That I didn't really care for. So if anything, I think about, wouldn't it be nice to hit something?
Yeah.
Take a hit.
Right. Yeah. I feel that way about cigarettes.
Oh, okay.
Like right now, I'm like, we could sit here and just smoke cigarettes and talk. And yeah. So occasionally and that's one thing that I do think about that. It's just sort of like, I don't know, I guess the romanticism behind smoking in like, it's fun. It feels cool. But the last cigarette I had was like, I don't know, 13, 14 years ago. And it made me sick as a dog. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. And that's good. It's good. I know that, but I still crave them.
I understand. I started smoking at like 37, maybe,
Wow.
to cover up for the fact that I was smoking weed.
The lengths we will go to.
I know. And I smoked for almost 2 years until my little girl, who was 6, said, Mommy, if you die of cancer, my already hard life will become even harder.
Oh, fuck.
And I just was like, oh my God. It's done. That was it. There was no more smoking after that. I mean, I continued to smoke weed. I just, chewed a lot of gum, but it just broke my heart.
Oh, man. Okay. So 8 years old, we'll say, first drunk. When was there a long gap between when you started like getting back into it, or was it junior high school, or college?
In like high school, I was a club kid. We would go to know, 15, 16 years old, go downtown and
Oh,
dance.
clubbing like that. I was
Clubbing
thinking
like
like the
that.
yacht club up the road. No.
No, no, the dancing
Oh
in the
yeah.
80s
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
the best.
Right.
And it was crazy. We could get in at that age, right? And
Yeah. Nobody gave a
I
shit.
mean, lots of drinks being bought for young, pretty girls and such. You know, and I would wake up on a Saturday morning hungover and sick. And then I would say, I'm not going out tonight. And then by, you know, the middle of the day, I was like, okay, where are we going tonight?
Oh
It was
man.
crazy.
Isn't it fucking weird?
It's weird.
I don't, it's like you can explain that to certain people and they're like, well, why did you just not, just don't drink that day? You're like, yeah, I know that. I get it. But it's like something just drew me to it. Like I didn't have any control over what was going on. It was just like my mind was made up and my body was following, and my subconscious or consciousness was just like, hey, we shouldn't be doing this, man. But you couldn't stop it. It's so, when we say we can't stop, that's what it is. There's like I guess it's our subconscious maybe that's like, you shouldn't be doing this, and then the rest of us is like, fuck off, we're doing it.
Right.
Yeah, it's the brain is a weird thing, especially when it comes to addiction. So okay, you're a club kid in the 80s.
Yes.
What did that lead to?
Um, well,
Wait, before you answer, did you have crimped hair?
I did own a crimper and I
Okay.
would crimp it at times, which is crazy because I have naturally curly hair.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, but,
you know, the things we do. Um, it led, you know, that led to a lot. I had a lot of fun, but there were a lot of like dangerous situations too because they
right.
were older men buying us drinks and there
Yeah.
were drugs in the
Yeah.
80s. And,
Okay.
you know, yeah, it just, it was kind of crazy. And it continued because I went to college in Chicago. I went to film school.
Okay.
And it just, I would still go out and dance. I loved dancing. I loved it. I still do. Um, but my first semester of college, I met two guys. One became my boyfriend and one became my best friend. And one was in my program, my film program, and the other I met on a train. And
Cool.
anyway,
Yeah.
they were both sober.
Oh, interesting.
I know.
And
So
they're kind of young then, yeah?
so my boyfriend was 23.
Yeah, okay.
I was 18, and my best friend was also 18, and he got sober at 16 in Cleveland. So he kind of had a foundation.
Wow.
And
that was in the 80s. Like,
yeah.
it seems more commonplace that younger and younger people are recognizing that they may need to do something about that. But I didn't think, 40 years ago or whatever, that it was really even heard
I
of.
am not that old. Oh my God.
20 years ago.
Okay, thank you. No,
Last week.
well, you know, in the 80s, I feel like there was a huge explosion in the 80s of self-help books and 30-day treatment programs. And tons of kids were getting thrown into rehab at that age. It's like, gosh, this kid is not behaving the way we think they should. Send him to rehab, whether it was a drug or alcohol problem or not. It just...
I get, yeah. You know what? I've heard stories about that, like, quote unquote reform schools, right? Where it's, in a way, am I off on that? Or, where it's like,
I think the government was the government, what am I saying? I think their insurance companies were willing to pay for 30-day treatment programs.
Okay.
It was more like it just became something that, a new method of, financial transfer of wealth to, parents were willing to pay.
Much like prisons.
Yeah, exactly. And it became, it was a system that kind of, I believe, started, like evolved and became really popular in the 80s.
And like birthed the Tony Robbins, the Wayne Dyer, the self-help gurus.
Definitely.
Out of that.
I think so.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I don't know if I even knew that or realized it, but now it all makes sense. So film school, what happened in film school?
So I got sober because of these two guys.
Awesome.
Which is crazy, it happened really easily in that, I just have to tell the story. So my boyfriend said, I don't want you to come over after you've been out drinking. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then my friend said, Steve, he said, Amy, when we go out to eat, because we'd go to like the diner next door to the college
Yeah.
or have lunch or whatever. He'd say, I don't want you to get high in the bathroom. And I was like, oh, okay. Like no one had ever said either of those things to me.
Right.
But it seemed like, oh, okay, that's reasonable. I get it.
And I
I'd
have the
never
choice.
considered I
Yeah.
have a choice. And so, about a year after hanging out with them, I decided, like, I watched them grow. They grew exponentially. And they were two completely different humans and different ages, different backgrounds, etc. But they both grew in ways that were unquantifiable to me, to my mind. I'd never seen people grow like that. And I'm talking about grow emotionally, grow spiritually, grow in character, grow in opportunities that came to them. And it was because, like, the only thing I could say that it was the 12 steps of the program.
Yeah.
And I wanted it. I wanted it like I'd never wanted anything else.
So
And
did you start going to AA then?
I started going to AA with the desire not to drink because that's all that's needed.
Right.
Plus, I'd already decided I'm not going to smoke pot around Steve and I'm not going to drink around Matthew. So I can do this. And man, it changed my life. It changed my life.
So how long were you sober then?
Till I was 25.
Wow, that's a stretch.
It was.
Like 7 years?
Yeah.
Thereabouts?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're 25. Where you living? What are you doing?
When I was 25, I was working on a movie in Los Angeles.
Okay, doing what?
I was a camera assistant.
Okay.
I was a camera assistant on a bunch of movies in the early 90s, early to mid 90s, and I was losing my mind because I had an amazing foundation here in Chicago. I had a home group, I had a sponsor, I had a group of friends, sober friends. We had a ton of fun. But because I was sober and graduating college, like all this stuff happened. I had all these opportunities.
Right.
The whole world opened up, right? So I'm in LA, I'm working on movies, but I don't have the foundation anymore.
Right.
I don't have the community of sober people, even though it was there, and
they're not your people.
They weren't my people. Meetings were different. I worked, 60, 70 hours a week.
Right.
It was hard. And you drive everywhere in LA, right? So,
yes,
maybe you're on the west side, but the only meeting that's going on at that hour is, like an hour away. But you only have 8 hours to sleep. So it just became a series of choices where work was more important than anything else. And so I was eating all the cookies at craft service. I mean, I was just doing anything I could to make myself feel better.
And what happened then?
And then I was like, maybe I need therapy. So I started seeing a therapist.
That's good.
And one day this is such a crazy story, man. I'm going to tell it though. Okay.
Let it rip.
All right. I lived, I didn't have a lot of stuff because of a crazy building fire that had happened.
My house burned down when I was 10, so yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah. My house, I lived in an apartment and it was one of 4 buildings that exploded.
Holy shit.
In 1992, when there was a surge in the natural gas line and in this part of town called River West. And there were so many fires, and there were 4 buildings leveled, and my building was leveled, and people died. It was a tragedy, but it was horrible. So I didn't have a lot of stuff anymore. And this is the ironic thing. It happened on the day I took my last final in college. And I just had
Chicago.
I was like, this is the best metaphor. I'm like, I'm being launched into life with my college degree, and now I'm being launched into life. With nothing. It's an open book. I can do anything I want. And but I immediately started accumulating stuff again. And I was going to keep it simple, and I didn't. Anyway, so I had a car and an apartment and a few belongings here in Chicago, and I'd flown to LA to do this job, and I needed my car because it was going to turn into a much bigger job.
Right.
So this guy that I knew from college, I'm like, hey, I'm going to go do a bigger movie. I need my car. Do you think you could come replace me on this movie and drive my car out here? And you're welcome. I'll rent you a car while you finish up this movie. These were good movies, by the way.
What were they?
Okay, I was on The Usual Suspects, which was
I have a Kevin Spacey story for off air.
okay. Yeah, it was awesome. It was an awesome movie to be on, but we only had like two more weeks left, and I was going to get to go do a big movie called Outbreak.
Oh shit! Dustin Hoffman and
Yeah,
Cuba Gooding Jr.
and Kevin.
Oh, Kevin Spacey. That's right.
But so anyway, so this guy Paul, he drives out with my car, and the day I get my car back, and we go to the rental place, and I rent him a car. We kind of had a lot of fun hanging out, and I was like, oh, do you want to like go to a movie tomorrow or something? And he said sure. So we spent like the whole day together, and then on that Monday morning, I flew to Northern California, and he finished up and went back to Chicago. And I couldn't stop thinking about him. And I made some comment to my therapist about him. I was like, I think I want to ask him to marry me. And she said, yeah, why don't you? I was like, yeah, why don't I?
Oh my God, is that person still practicing?
I have no idea. I mean,
Jesus. That's a big no-no, everybody.
But
Your therapist isn't to tell you what to do.
But I did ask him to marry me. Oh my God. I asked him to marry me.
And?
He said yes.
Oh my God.
But he said, I have to tell you something. And we were on the phone. I mean, I asked him over the phone. You know, he thought about it for a couple days and then got back to me over the phone. And when he says yes, he's like, but I need to let you know that once in a while I do crack.
Okay, you don't do it once in a while.
Well, actually, he did only do it once in a while.
Really?
Yeah, but the tears were flowing down my face. I was like, oh my God, no, this is so sad. But I was like, okay, I can probably live with that. I mean, I was so sick at that point.
Yeah.
And again, I hadn't picked up a drink.
Yeah, but you were like dry drunken. Basically.
I was so dry drunk. And that's what happens with alcoholics. Like, we move the goalpost.
Every day.
Yeah, we're like, I would never cross this line. But you cross it and you're like,
now I'm going to marry this dude who is an occasional crack user.
And I was just like, crack. But you know what? I feel like such an idiot sometimes when I tell my story. But what I asked him, and this is how I said, what do you think God is? And he paused and he said, God is love. And I was like, that's the answer. That's what I needed.
That's all I needed to know.
That's all I needed to know. I'm like, we can speak the same language. We can do this. We can make this work. And he was really smart and really handsome and funny. And I don't know, he had no job, and I mean,
he's perfect.
No resources, nothing.
At 25, he's good looking.
Oh my, he was 30.
Oh shit.
I mean, I don't know why the red flags they didn't matter.
They don't, man.
They didn't matter.
I met somebody. I was 20, she was 18, and one day we just hopped on an airplane and flew to Reno and got married.
No way.
Yeah.
Wait, you're not talking about Nancy?
No.
No. I didn't know that.
I know. You know, I mean, it's wow. Nancy in front of the kids is like, yeah, that's right. I'm number 2.
Oh my gosh.
Fuck off. The kids are like, what? Like, yeah, well, I mean, you know, I was a cokehead, so why not let you know that I was also married to another woman before I met your mom? Oh, and, you know, it was, again, red flags, like 2 years, and it was just a fucking shit show. Oh, but man. I, you know, the impulsiveness that comes along with addiction, it's not just the impulsiveness of like sneaking a shot or sneaking a joint. Like, it encompasses all of your life, and like these life-changing choices, like marrying somebody on a whim, like everything that goes along with that. Yeah. Just let alone the legality bullshit that when it ends, you have to go through that. And I mean, thankfully mine was like very cut and dried, but you know, I'm grateful for that. But I know enough, and I hear enough stories from people that it's like fuck, and to set yourself up for that just because it feels good in the moment, it's wild.
Yeah. I have to say though, I did love him in whatever naive way I
Sure, you
thought
did.
I did. But we did end up having three beautiful children
See,
and stayed married 15 years. And then divorced. And now it's been many years.
are you guys okay
Oh,
now?
um, no, he immediately, this is so sordid, but he immediately moved a 22-year-old girl into our home. And she,
With the children?
with the, because I left, I had to leave, I
Yeah,
couldn't stay.
sure.
Um, and he raised her too. I mean, he was 42, she was 22.
Was she was his girlfriend?
Yeah, and he married her eventually, and she's still there, still together. I mean, I can point fingers and be like, wow.
Yeah,
But they're
that's
still
his.
together, and the more love kids have, the better.
Well, that's his. You know, that's another like a difficult thing to come to in when you get sober and you're in recovery and whatever you're doing to stay that way is you do have to get to the point where it's his problem, right? And it's like, okay, well, those we can't judge anymore. And if we think that they're doing something wrong, it doesn't matter. That's not our business. We can't do anything about that. And you know, the flip side of that is like whatever somebody thinks about you, that's not your business either.
That's so hard to
That one's tough.
internalize,
That
man.
one is fucking hard, but it's true,
Yeah.
right? Like just because they have that feeling about you doesn't mean that it's true. It's like that's their issue with you, and that has nothing to do with you.
So she and I were fine when I was really sick because I didn't get sober until 2010.
Okay.
That's when I came back, um, and then when I got sober, it's like everything. Like as soon as I started to get better, I was persona non gratis, and
Yeah.
I haven't had a conversation with her now in over 15 years, and so yeah, he and I, we don't, it was a really uncomfortable. I went back to court to try to get my kids back for more
Yeah.
time than I had. We had joint custody, but he had parental
Okay.
rights. And then we ended up, I took him back to court. And so then we had him 50-50. And I had them 50% of the time, and he had them 50% of the time. And we only lived a block away from each other, so it was
Well,
great.
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So, what was the end like? I mean,
Oh, it was terrible. Chad, it was terrible because, like, you know, we moved back to Chicago,
okay.
but he still worked in the film business.
Okay.
And so he was in Los Angeles. I was here we moved back here when I was pregnant with my second child. So I was pregnant with my second child. Now then I had two children, and I had a house in Evanston. My parents were 5 minutes away in Wilmette, and he was in Los Angeles. And there was this one period of time, he left when my second baby was 5 weeks old, and he didn't come back till she was 19 months old.
Get the fuck out of here.
No, I mean, he worked that much, and it just, I thought I was going to lose my mind because
You probably did.
I did. Like I did all these house projects at first. I wallpapered. I taught myself how to do electrical work and plumbing work and tiling work, and I did all this stuff to our house. And then there was like nothing left to do except drink and watch movies, like rent. This was back when DVDs were.
Yeah.
I'd rent them at the library, and I'd watch DVDs of like The Sopranos because we didn't have cable, so I'd catch up on all this stuff and drink by myself late at night, and I would drink wine at first, but then I switched to beer. And I know nobody thinks you can get drunk on beer, but you can when you're like a little
fuck
girl,
yeah, you can.
and you drink like 10 of them.
Yeah. It's just it's quantity, not quality, really.
Oh,
Yeah.
but I went for quality. I mean, high proof,
Well, I
good
did too.
beer.
See, I was in the throes of it all in Portland, Oregon, and
Yeah.
it really was taking hold about the time the craft brewery movement,
Yes.
hit. And yeah, it was like anything that was like 7% was like my baseline.
Mm-hmm.
And if we hit 10 or 11, I was like, give it to me.
Yes. Yes. And it tasted great.
Oh, it tasted really good.
Yeah.
But toward the end, it was like, fucking old style and PBR.
Yes, I never went back.
Trader Joe's has a brand of beer.
Did they really?
It's called Simpler Times. And, it was in the days of like $2 Chuck, when you could get a bottle at Charles Shaw for $2. You could get a 6-pack of Simpler Times for like $3, right?
Okay.
So it was like, $5 basically, your
Wow.
6-pack and a bottle of wine. Did not feel good. So you're momming alone, you're drinking at night, and like, where to go from there?
Man, do you really want to hear some of it?
Fuck yeah.
Okay, I'm a Catholic. I grew up Catholic. I love God. I have no issues with any of that. And it was Lent. And during Lent, sometimes the whole parish will do like confession, but it'll be like a group confession where you're all in lines and you walk up and there are like
but
4
the confession's
lines.
still private, right? But
well, it is, but it isn't, because you have your moment alone with the priest, but there's like 4 lines and there's 50 people ahead of you, 50 behind you. So I have my baby in my arms, and so she's like 19 months at that point, and I have my little girl who's 4. I'm holding her hand, and it's our turn. We get up to the priest, and it happens to be my least favorite priest. But I said to him, I am homicidal and I am suicidal. Help me. And he just looked at me like I was insane. Like it was so inappropriate. It was just the wrong time, the wrong place, and the wrong person just to say I needed help. But I was so down and depressed. I just was like, I can't do this anymore. And my children deserve a good mother, so they're going to have to come with me. I had no plan, like no actual plan, but that's how I felt. And he basically just absolved me of my sinful thoughts. And I just was like, oh my God, I need help. So I went to my internist, who put me on antidepressants. And then I was like, maybe I should go back to AA. So I went for about a year.
Okay.
This was 2002. I stayed till 2003. And I would drag my girls to meetings with me because my husband wasn't around. Right. There was no childcare. It just was, it was so bleak. It was bleak, and I was showing up a lot, but I wasn't doing any of the actual work, the meat of the steps, which is where the change happens, the transformation. Yeah. And so I was still unhappy, and so I drank. I was at a party. A woman in my neighborhood hosted a 35th birthday party for herself, and there was a palm reader there. My mom babysat that night for me.
This is going to be great.
It's ridiculous. It was my turn for the palm reader, and I asked the palm reader if they thought I was an alcoholic.
Oh boy. And
they looked at me a little askew, and then thought about it, and was like, no, I don't. You're not an alcoholic. And I was like, all righty. Yeah. I went downstairs and I had a margarita with everyone else.
Oh, fuck. That is like classic alcoholic thinking, man. Like when somebody's like, you're like, I know that I am, and I'm in such a place right now that I'm desperate for somebody to like acknowledge either I am or I'm not. And just having a palm reader be like, Nah, I don't think so. Like, that's all we need. Yeah. That is all we need. And that sent you on, quite a journey, I guess, at that point.
Oh, yeah. It just went downhill from there. It really did.
And so were you still like taking medication at that time, or did you just kind of drop all of that
No, no, I definitely took antidepressants
and
and med
drink? And
and drank at the same time.
yeah, don't do that, people. That must have
Yeah.
been fucking rugged.
Well, I decided I'd have another baby.
Oh, cool, because that'll solve it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of a surprise, but it was also like, okay, I never drank at all during pregnancies,
Huh.
like at all. So I was dry, really dry for 9 months,
Pregnant.
and pregnant.
What a
And then I
peach.
had my third one, and he was my only little boy, and he's wonderful, he's perfect. And um, but my postpartum was so
Oh
bad
man.
that after 2 weeks, I was like, I have to have meds or I'm gonna die. Really, like that's how I felt. And so I stopped breastfeeding him at that point, even though I had like breastfed the other two for a year, more than a year each. And um, I was like, because I can't poison this child with,
Yeah.
antidepressants.
Yeah.
And that is not,
It's not the truth.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I poisoned him. I drank alcohol. He was fine with it. You know what I mean? One chemical, another chemical, who knows? But so then I just started drinking after that. I was just, wow, yeah, the wheels came off.
Yeah, man. Do you think that did you kind of stay stuck in the postpartum after, like, while you were drinking? Did it kind of is? I know for me, like, I would get emotionally stunted if there was something that happened in my life that is something that you should allow yourself to process in one way or another, in a healthier way than just drinking and suppressing it. I would stay stuck kind of in that emotional track. And it not until I got sober and got back into therapy did all that shit start coming out. Right. And it was pretty ugly for me. But, I postpartum is it's so common and it's not acknowledged. It's not like people don't give that space, and that shit's real, man. And, you know, uh, to be drinking during that time in your life, it really must have been fucking painful.
You know, it was I felt so bad. And I had it pretty badly after my second one, but I had to pull myself out of it because Paul left
Right.
and
What are you going to do?
went back to work, and I had to somehow manage, with these two children, and I did. But so I started taking two different antidepressants, which definitely helped. They raised the bottom,
Yeah.
but then to just deal with life with three children now was, yeah, I drank. I just drank, and I started smoking pot. I got my first DUI, a first and only DUI, but I wasn't convicted. I just had a lot of community service, and I just knew I had to move out. I had to leave my husband because I gave him an ultimatum. I'm like, dude, either quit the film industry and do something else, work here in Chicago, come home and be a family with me, or I can't be a family. I can't do this by myself anymore. And he, I mean, he had it made.
Yeah.
He was living in LA like a single guy, and the wife and kids were at home. This was before you could FaceTime people. I mean, it was.
So he could do whatever he wanted.
And he did. I mean, he had this girlfriend who moved in. I left in August. She was there by November.
Jesus.
So.
Well, what a brave thing to do, even though
Costly though.
I know, but I mean, that's what happened. It's what happened. And that's, I was actually talking with my brother yesterday, and, he had some real struggles when he was drinking and drugging, and, at least that I'm aware of, a handful of unsuccessful attempts at getting sober. And, he is now. He's like fucking sober. And so our relationship's at an entirely different level. It's a relationship that I always wanted and never thought was possible, and we're
That's
here.
amazing.
Yeah, it's really fucking cool. And as I told him, I'm like, well, it was all really fucked up, dude. But here we are, and it just took 50 years to get here.
Yeah.
You know? So just hang in there, everybody. Just
Definitely.
keep doing the work and hang in there. Okay. Shit happens, but sometimes it takes a really long time. But he was like, so you're at the point where you like yourself now and things in your life have changed. And I'm like, yeah, there's an ease that comes along with it. Shit's still really hard. It's really fucking hard, but I don't battle myself as much as I used to. And he's like, yeah, I can't get there yet. He's like, I have a real hard time with all of the shit that I did and that I put people through. And he's like, I think about it sometimes and it just eats me up. And I'm like, what? I get it, dude. But I mean, it happened. There's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
It happened. And you got to just acknowledge it, own it, and then be like, okay, well, that's who I was. You're not that person anymore. And you got to start liking yourself for who you are. And, that's it's so like you hear it and you're like, oh, okay. But it's really fucking hard because if you get down in the gutters in your addiction, like I did, like you have, and so many other people, once you get clear of that and you start doing the work and you start like, getting yourself back on track and acknowledging things, that part of it is really, really hard to accept. And, you have to own it. It's part of your life. You can't get over it. You're never going to get over certain things, but you're going to have to acknowledge that it happened, that it was there. But you have to find a way to like move past it, right? Just like, okay, it's there and that's just where it's going to hang out. But that's just not who I am now. That's who I was. And let's just learn from it.
Well, I like the idea of the concept that everything that's happened up to this point brought me to this point.
Exactly.
And I think that's a healthy way to come to see it.
Yeah. Like we were talking before we got started. I mentioned that I went through a lot of traumatic shit in my life. And a lot of it happened at a young age. And so when I discovered alcohol at 18, all that stuff like kind of melted away. And I was ill prepared for life at that point. And, a lot of shit happened. And a lot of things that I'm not proud of that I did. And, I hurt people. And it was never my intention. It was never our intention to do that. But we did. And when you recognize that there's collateral damage to that, it's really hard to accept that. And some people just can't and go back out or worse. And, I decided to reframe it in my mind instead of all this stuff that happened to me. It's like all these things happened for me because of where I am. Right. And it's like, okay, I finally have I think I'm feeling like a true happiness, right? For the first time. And you have to acknowledge like, okay, that shit sucked. It was really hard, really, really hard. And it messed me up for a long time. But look what I have today.
Right.
Like I gotta look at it and say, and kind of thank it. I hear people say like, I'm grateful and happy that I'm an alcoholic. And I heard that early on. I'm like, what in the fuck are you talking about? And what they mean by that is like, your life will change if you allow it to. And it will, I don't know, morph, enhance. It'll be different in a way that you didn't think was possible, especially if you get to that dark place toward the end of it where you have given up and you just think that there's no hope in anything. And then when you end up where you are, even if it's sober, and like sober, an apartment and a bike or a car, like you're happy. I mean, like you're doing it, right? There's an independence and you're doing it. And at that point in time, you're like, I can't even I cannot imagine or see myself being self-sufficient in any way, shape or form. And sometimes just the basic being able to like take care of yourself in the smallest ways is like a huge, huge victory. And people forget to recognize those things about themselves. Like it's cool to like acknowledge yourself in good ways, even if it's something simple that people will be like, you're happy you did that today? Yeah, man, I brushed my teeth. You have no idea what I was doing 5 years ago.
It's insane how small a world my world became.
Oh man.
And I heard someone say this the other day, and I think it's so awesome. They said, other people get in the way of me hanging out with myself. Because isolating is like one of my favorite things to do.
Oh
Just
fuck,
me,
man.
myself, and I. And it is so not where I truly want to be.
Yeah, you're a social person, like I'm a social person. We like to like talk, right?
Right.
And but the place that I crave the most is that isolation. And you know, our friend Jim told me earlier on in my sobriety, he was like, the most intimate relationship you've ever had and ever will have was with your alcohol.
Oh, it's so true.
And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he's like, well, I mean, it never lied to you. It never talked back to you. It always listened to you. And it was always there when you needed it. And it understood you. I was like, oh, fuck. And it's so true that, when you isolate and you have, obvious, I had, drugs were a big part of my story too, but it was always the alcohol because it's easy to get.
So easy.
You go to the store, you buy a 6-pack or whatever you need, a 30-pack, depending on where you are in your drinking career. And nobody bats an eye. Right?
Right.
It's like, oh, that guy's having a good time. She's having a good time. And then you sit there alone and it gives you what you think you need at that time.
Right.
And even when you get mad and angry and sad, it's still there.
Oh, yeah. Wait, I have a thought. Let me pose to you as a creative person, which you are. I used to get stoned and drink and write and think, oh yeah, I'm having my best thoughts. I know these are my best ideas. And sometimes I look at that stuff in the morning, before I started drinking again, and was like, wow, I can barely read my handwriting. I thought that like what alcohol and drugs did for me, besides escaping reality, I thought it connected me in a way that nothing else could. But it's truly, I feel like that need to connect it was really what I was looking for, was connecting with a higher purpose.
Absolutely.
Which we call, whatever we call it.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
But now, in connecting with that, which I still have to do regularly in order to be okay, I get to then connect with other people, which I was incapable of doing before.
Oh, absolutely. And, there's that, because we think, you hear stories like, oh man, did you know Hendrix was high on acid when he wrote that song? Or whatever,
Right. Oh, I know.
And like, fuck yeah, man. Like, yeah, it's creative. And it's like, that's just madness with a very talented person. That's all that is, It doesn't enhance your life in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't. But I used to think that, I'm a ham. I like to like get up and make people laugh and do all that kinds of shit. And, I was really good at it, still am, but it got so sloppy toward the end, and like when people weren't laughing, and Nancy just used to call me Funny Man Chad. She's like, Funny Man Chad showed up last night, huh? And I'm like, ooh, really? And Funny Man Chad just could not go back in the box.
That's a painful name. I don't want
to. I know. And I was like, oh God. And so, yeah, it does not enhance your creativity at all. In fact, it like stunts it, if it doesn't completely cut it off.
Right. Right.
Like it took me a long time to like be really open about being creative in any way. I had no self-confidence. I had my insecurities were just like greater than the world that I lived in, and I had ideas and thoughts and stuff, but I just didn't believe in myself. And, throughout my life, so many crazy opportunities like popped up, but I was so fucked up that I couldn't do anything about it, or wouldn't do anything about it, and I would just be eating myself inside alive, like knowing that I'm blowing it. Yeah. And it wasn't until, I got several years of sobriety under my belt that I did allow myself to like lean into whatever is creative in me. And, but what, there, I guess there's a romanticism to like addiction. Like Hunter S. Thompson, right? Was a hot fucking mess, right?
Henry Miller,
Henry
one of
Miller,
my
yeah,
favorites.
all these people that were just Hemingway were just a fucking mess. And they created this amazing art, right? And so, people are like, oh, I'm just going to go like live in a cabin in the woods and shoot heroin and write the next great American novel because that's how you do it. And it's like, no, no, that's not how you do it. I mean, fucking Hemingway blew his head off. Do you think he was a happy guy?
Right.
No, he didn't, man. He was a fucking twisted, miserable prick, but he wrote amazing, literature. And it's just, you don't need it. It does not enhance your life in that way. And just find a way to find, connect with the people, connect with the community. If you find like-minded people that you feel comfortable around, you can express your creativeness, creativity around them and find that you might actually have, some good ideas. There was a person that I was talking to a couple of weeks ago, and I was letting him know what I'm up to and all these other projects that I'm working on. And he's like, see, you're an idea man, Chad. And I like that about you. And no one had ever said that to me before. And I felt like a little kid. I was like, oh. But it was in ideas are ideas, and all ideas are good. Right. And that that is something important to like understand about yourself, especially in sobriety. If you're having an idea about something, like lean into it.
Oh yeah.
And share it with people. Because it could be a really good idea, or it could be an idea that warps or warps your thinking, your self-perception of stuff. But the people can tell you like, yeah, dude, no, that's not what it's like. I like where you're going, but no, that's not it.
Right. It morphs and evolves into another, like that's how things become.
Yeah. And that's how art works too. Yeah. And that's how creativeness works. And I've been saying this like nonstop for weeks, months. I don't even know what time. So many things are going on. But what I've discovered about myself and what I think holds true for anybody who is any form of sobriety and recovery, like, as we were talking, like, it's not just drugs and alcohol, or food or sex, workaholic, being addicted to your work, being addicted to toxic relationships and chaos and doom scrolling and just doom and the news and social media and all of these things that like trigger the dopamine in our head, right? That make us feel good. And we continue to chase that rush. That's dependency when it becomes addiction. And so, yeah, you got to kind of look at things a little differently in your life. And as you age and mature and evolve, your sobriety and recovery are going to have to evolve with you, because what got you sober, whatever that sobriety looks like, and gets you on a path of like work, doing work to get yourself in a recovery mindset. And it's going to change as you change. Things are going to stop. I shouldn't say stop working, but they're going to get stale, and you're not going to be able to move forward, and you have to allow yourself to do that. And that sometimes that is part of, being creative with yourself, allowing yourself to be creative, because you could like learn to play an instrument. Like if you want to learn to draw, or, you want to work in a garden and become like, you get in touch with the earth and plants, and you want to like design garden. I mean, you can do any of those things, and that's a creative expression. Mm-hmm. But through that creative expression, you also get to connect with other people, other like-minded people. And when you start surrounding yourself with like-minded people, you really, really, like, your world changes, because there's so many things. I mean, addiction, sobriety, addiction you do by yourself. Like you end up being isolated and alone. Mm-hmm. And sobriety and recovery, man, you got to find your people. You need that community. You can't fucking do it on your own.
Oh, you can't. You can't.
It's so painful.
Well, and it doesn't work. I mean, you can't, literally, you cannot get sober by yourself.
No, it just doesn't work.
Well, just like you can't get healthy by yourself. What Einstein said, the same sick mind can cannot cure that sick mind. You have to have outside intervention, and spiritual intervention is really what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's true. It is. And I had a conversation with a person yesterday, the podcast, and we talked about. She mentioned the word faith because she's like a wellness sober coach, and
cool.
And she, mentions faith as one of her like pillars of helping people. And I was like, let's talk about that for a second, because when most people, I feel, at least most people I encounter, when they hear the word faith, they automatically associate it with religion, and they're two separate things.
Totally.
You can practice a religion and have faith within your religion that what you're doing is going to give you the outcome that you desire. But having faith in something other than yourself, right, that's not a religion.
No, definitely not. It's, dude, I think of it as like an equation.
Oh, yeah?
Like cause and effect. I really, to me, it's like this pulse. I don't know.
No, I get it. Yeah,
it's like this pulsating current. It's energy. It's time is constantly moving. Like everything is constantly moving, and you have to move with it.
Well, faith of that works is dead. And what that means, like, have the faith that it's going to work out, but you have to do the work to make sure that it's going to work out.
Right. You have to unblock all that stuff so you're not constantly thinking about yourself, so you can actually be present in the moment as it's happening.
And that's faith.
And that is living as time and life is actually happening.
Yeah, I know this is weird heady shit, people, but it's true. Okay. Like what it comes down to is, we can sit around and we can believe and we can pray and we can meditate for a particular outcome. Right. And it's not going to happen.
No, because it's unpredictable what's going to happen.
Yeah. And you just, I often tell people, they're like, well, what's the plan? I'm like, well, okay, let's talk about it this way, dudes. Okay, we start at point A and we get to point B, right?
Perhaps.
But hang on. But we know that we're going to get to point B, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Well, how are we going to get there? Fuck if I know. We just have to get to point B. And that's having faith. It's like you can't map everything out. You can't plan everything out because there's no faith. And it's going to make you miserable, and it's going to make you it kind of makes you a prick.
Well, and it blocks you from the happening.
Yeah, it does. It gets in the way of the happening, and the happening is the fun part.
Yeah, because joy can only be experienced in the moment.
Exactly.
Joy is not an idea. Joy is something you are experiencing, and you only are experiencing it as you're experiencing it.
Amen. And to that point, Amy, today is April 4th, tomorrow is April 5th. It'll be happening already, but the sober soiree that I'm hosting. So excited. Yeah, well, see, that's kind of the point of the whole thing, is to get a group of people together, sober people, non-sober people, and have the sober people tell, or some sober people tell an engaging story about themselves, but, kind of, some of the dirty laundry, if you will, the skeleton in the closet, the guts, of what it was like, right? And so before, what it was like and what it's like now.
Transformation.
And to talk about that, and, getting like-minded people together, or people who are willing to listen or have a conversation about mental health, addiction, all these things that we feel are impolite to discuss, and that we're being rude if we ask about it. You're not. You're being an asshole by not asking. Sorry, but you are. Don't be afraid of it. Is that through that experience, through the connection, that's where the joy comes in, right? It's not just a simple, like, showing up instantly, you walk in and it's like, I'm filled with joy. It's like, no, I
You're
hope
glad
that
to be there.
you're glad to be there.
Yeah.
But the process of what we're doing here today is what hopefully brings you that joy. And, you know, I'm guilty of it too. It's like the world needs more joy in it. It's like, well, yeah, it's true, but we have to, soapbox time, we have to work together
Oh,
and be able
yeah.
to listen to
It's
each other in order to
it's
find the
it's
joy.
the shared experience
Yeah,
of
man.
being present.
Yeah.
100%.
We're all in this life together.
Yeah. I mean,
Like, come on, man.
absolutely. And I think I heard this recently that like 96% of our what our mind does is replay things.
Yeah.
And that's so not useful for me.
No, me either.
No, I have to, if I can stay present in the moment and not relive things that have already happened or think about things I want to happen, then I'm actually participating and influencing what is happening.
Exactly. Exactly. And, you know, if you find yourself where old things are replaying, even if it's something that you find yourself, we'll call it a trigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's what it is. You find yourself where you're having this experience and a trigger is engaged, but you don't know, because I have a million triggers, but I have no idea what they are. I just know that certain circumstances, I feel a certain way. Things happen in me because of all that ingrained trauma in myself. But what I've worked on and, excuse me, notice that helps me and sometimes the people around me is like remembering what that was that caused me to feel that way, and knowing that by recognizing that and doing something different than what that experience was, it it changes you, and it kind of affects the people around you, and through that creates a presence, like being present in a way that you didn't think you could be, because you're influenced, you're educated by this previous thing that caused you to feel a certain way, but you learned from that, right? And so that's like the growth and the joy, and so that again goes back to the community building part, that you wouldn't be doing any of that if you didn't have a community around you where you know that being different in that moment than you used to be in the past is going to be supported and understood. But that's the presence part of it as well. Like you're actively being present by doing that work.
And I will say this, Chad, in this community of sober, spiritual, growing people, there isn't anything that I may yet experience that someone else hasn't. Like,
Exactly.
I will always, like, I can worry, well, what about when, my loved ones start to get old and die? Well, that other people have been through that. I
Exactly.
never have to be alone ever. Again.
And if you just, because people are willing to listen, and you feel comfortable enough to talk about that, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And that is so lost right now amongst all of us, that, the thing of it is that everybody's so divided and so staunch in their beliefs, that nobody's willing to budge from that, because nobody wants to listen and nobody wants to offer an experience, right? It's like, if you fucking just listen to each other, you'd realize that the majority of us, human beings, are more alike than not.
Correct. Definitely.
And we all would benefit from that fact, right? We have values, we have beliefs, and it's going to be different. Sure, fine, but you're not going to not going to change. You're not going to like move forward in anything unless you listen to why a person feels a certain way. And you may, here's the fucked up thing, is you may feel that exact same emotion, but under different like topics, if you will.
Sure.
And by that, like, hey, well, this makes me feel this way. The other person be like, well, this makes me feel the exact same way. And so you have that feeling, and so through that you can kind of work shit out. And when you get through that, by the end of it, you're like, wow, we were freaked out about the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
And
yet we found a common solution.
Yeah, exactly. Community.
Right. Wait, can I tell you something crazy? I've been thinking the last couple days.
Absolutely.
Feel free to edit this out. And I haven't told Sean. I've only told a few people, two people, in fact.
Now we're telling the world. No.
No, I'm telling you.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been thinking about how people have sharp edges, and they don't, and they have them for whatever reason, because
Sure.
of stuff that's happened in their lives, the way they view the world, blah, blah, blah. But I think the goal is to soften those edges.
Yes.
And I think that, how our dear, dear friend Vic is dying right now.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about how important it is to. One of the things I love about meetings is the physical contact. We hold hands.
Yes.
Hold hands in a meeting at the
Last
end.
night there was a group of dudes hugging each other as we were,
You hug somebody. There are people walking around on this earth who haven't had any form of physical contact with another person in years. And how we are not meant to live in isolation. We are not meant to go without human touch and warmth and love. And how I was thinking, what if I could be a person who,
like a public hugger?
Not just a public hugger, but more like an embrace, a long embrace. Yeah. I just was thinking, if not necessarily me, but I would love to do it, but if people could just be held for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That is what that is unconditional love.
That changes you.
That changes them.
Yeah.
And it changes the giver as well. But that is pure unconditional love happening in a present moment. Mm-hmm. It's being present where transformation happens.
Absolutely.
It's that connection with the divine, with the human.
And if we all started doing more of that together, it wouldn't be a fucking cult.
Right. It's not. But I want to hold Vic. And I know. It's not even possible, but
no, it's, you brought that up and I kind of picked up on where you were going. And when Nancy and I lived in Portland, she had a food cart. We had a food cart. And I don't know if you know, but 15 years ago, there was a huge food cart movement in Chicago. And, after the economic crash of the late aughts, early teens, lots of restaurants in Portland closed. And Portland has a fabulous, at least then I think it still does, had a fabulous food scene. Definitely. So a lot of restaurants closed and a lot of talented people were out of work and not making any money. And that skill that they have is what they've been honing. Right. Mm-hmm. And, good, bad, or indifferent, Portland had no regulation on food carts. And so people who owned parking lots, like street level parking lots, started renting out parking spots to people who could bring in a food cart. And these food carts were various different sizes of things, but they were like a trailer, a camp size trailer. Right. Some, in fact, were camp trailers. And all of these people started creating all this amazing food, right? And so this whole scene burst out, and fortunately, we kind of got in at the right time. Anyway, I was sort of rambling to get to the point, but one day it was kind of slow, and Nancy put out through I forgot what, Twitter or something at the time, that come on down, we're giving away free hugs.
Oh.
And oh God, that's her. Sorry, everybody. But so. And she had somebody that was working with her, and people started showing up for free hugs. And her coworker would run outside and just give them a hug. And
that's awesome.
Can you imagine if somebody tried to do that right now? It'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Man, we should then.
Right?
For God's sakes, yes.
I mean, it just made me think, do we just have a little, I don't know, like a sandwich board outside, on the street corner that said free hugs? It just started handing out hugs to people.
I would do that, man.
Yeah.
I would hug anybody.
Anybody, man.
Anybody.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And I'd love to hug everybody.
Oh, man. Wow.
We just need more love in this world.
Seriously, dude.
And it has to start one-on-one.
Yeah.
Just like those conversations. I have a friend who argues on Facebook with people about political things, and I'm always like, oh my God, why? And she's like, because where else am I going to have the interface to do that on a one-on-one basis? And, I think we all do our part. We do what we can. And I love that you have this platform and that your platforms are getting even bigger because you are going to touch so many people. It's amazing.
Thank you.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. And we're going to end on that note.
All right.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Thanks a lot, Chet.